Shalom. This week's Sedra is Sedra Behar-Bechukoti. It's a double Sedra, and it ends off our study of Sefer Vayikra. It's an exciting Sedra. Bechukoti gets a little depressing, and it lists the tochacha, the punishments that we have for not following the Torah. With the increase of online transactions, the marketplace has really switched from the storefront to the computer terminal. More and more people are doing their shopping online. That increase in the marketplace from the storefront to the computer has also had an effect on charitable giving, as more and more charities are now soliciting and collecting donations online. This has made a tremendous increase in the amount of charitable giving, as the ease of giving charity has brought on more and more people being willing to donate and donating more frequently. Charity is one of the most important mitzvot that we have in the Torah. In fact, the Rabbi goes so far as to say that one's lineage can be determined by their charitable giving. He draws suspicion on anyone who doesn't show proper generosity when it comes to their charitable giving. This Dvar Torah is going to examine a law in donating to the temple, to the Beit HaMikdash. And once we examine that law, we're going to be able to define a principle that applies to all giving, all charitable giving. But before we can define that principle, what we have to do is we have to examine three methods of study, and really of examining a halacha. When a law is taught, so the student of the Torah begins to analyze that law. Each specific law, each halacha, each din that we study is part of an overall mitzvah and tells us a lot about the mitzvah. There are three approaches that a student can take to examining a law. The first one is a practical approach. What we do is we look at and look at to see how does this halacha enable us to fulfill the overall mitzvah in a better or easier way, in a more practical way. That understanding, once we come to it, gives us a more practical understanding of the mitzvah. The second way we look at it is a philosophical approach, where we begin to examine the reasons and the benefits and the importance and the value of that mitzvah. Once we understand that, we have a general understanding, a philosophical understanding of the mitzvah. The third way, and this is the approach that we're going to take today, is a conceptual approach, where we understand the halacha, and the halacha teaches us of an overall concept that is discussed and is imbued in that halacha. That gives us a conceptual understanding of the halacha. When we examine this law in charitable giving, so what we find is that there's a halacha in this week's Sedra that somebody can donate a vow, they can vow to donate their value or someone else's value to the Beit HaMikdash. And the Torah gives prescribed levels as to how much each person is worth based on their gender and their age. Now, if somebody vows and doesn't realize how much they're vowing, how much they're offering to give to the Beit HaMikdash, what then happens is that they go to the Kohen and they say, I can't afford that much. The Kohen then takes a valuation of exactly how much the person can afford. Now, if we take our three methods of studying and analyzing, on a practical level, that makes a lot of sense. The person can't afford the entire pledge that they made, so we examine how much they can give, and that's how much they're charged, and that's how much they give. On a philosophical level, we understand it as well. The person has decided to give to the temple, and the temple still needs that donation. So the temple is going to take as much as possible. On a conceptual level, though, how do we understand this law? What's the concept? And I think this is where we find a novel idea to this halacha that can teach us something about charitable giving as a whole. On a conceptual level, this person vowed to give something to the temple, a certain amount to the temple. Now, the vow can be looked upon as providing necessary funds to the temple. But there's another aspect to charitable giving, a second aspect, and this is where the concept comes into play. The idea is of the person giving of themselves. When this person vowed, not only did they offer to give much needed funds to the temple, but they also vowed to give of themselves, of their own resources, to the Beit HaMikdash. On a conceptual level, that still applies. And that's exactly what the novel approach, the novelty is to this law. What's the novelty here? The novelty is the idea that the person themselves is still going to give of themselves. Even though they can't give what they've pledged, they're going to give still of themselves whatever they can afford. It's not so much that the temple is taking what it can get, but there's a second aspect, the person's still going to give what they need. Shabbat Shalom.